Time to check out A Stan Kraychik Mystery, Book 5. Author, Grant Michaels. Publisher, St. Martin's Press, New York, 1996. Narrator, Eric Aust. Chapter 17. San Fuentes had instructed me to play the vacationer. In evidence to the contrary, I can obey orders when expedient. It was noontime, already late for the first cocktail of any real holiday, so I set out to rehearse my former role as vacationing deadbeat in Key West. Despite the oppressive heat, I walked from the waterfront across town to the toolbox, protecting myself in the shady, tree-lined arcades along Symington Street. I hoped Ross might be tending bar that day, and he was. But when he saw me coming up the stairwell, he signaled me to go down. A minute later, he joined me and pulled me into a little alcove out of sight and earshot of the hotel's lobby. Ross leaned close and murmured, "Darling, everyone's talking about us." "I know," I said. "I don't understand the big deal. What's worse is they all know I didn't take your money." It sounded like an accusation. I said, "You forgot it." "I didn't forget," he said, straining to control his whisper. "But did you have to tell everyone?" "I didn't, Ross." I explained how the houseboy had seen the money on the nightstand where Ross had left it, and apparently he'd told everyone else at the guest house, and then the news hit the street, and the rest, well... Ross apologized. "Sorry, darling. I thought you were bragging how you got me free. If folks hear that, they'll think I'm soft on you." "You? Soft?" I said. "You know what I mean, darling. But talk like that'll ruin my business." "And then maybe we can stage a little transaction upstairs. I'll hand you some cash out in the open so anyone in the bar can see. It'll be strictly business." "That might work," said Ross. "And I'll give it back when we're alone later." "You don't have to, Ross. I believe in a day's pay for a day's work." "Not between friends," said Ross. "We're hardly friends," I said. "You mean we're lovers?" he said eagerly. I laughed before realizing the consequences. His face drooped sadly. "I guess not," he said. "Ross," I said, "we barely know each other. How can you throw out words like friend and lover when you're referring to us?" He said, "Last night it felt like you really cared about me. Was that just an act?" I said, "Wasn't it for you?" Ross said flatly, "No." "Oh," I said. "What about you?" he said. "Were you acting?" I didn't answer. I didn't know the answer. It hadn't felt like acting, but I'd thought it was. So then, what was it? Ross waited silently for me to solve a problem neither of us had anticipated. I said, "How about for now we keep it business between us? I pay, we play." "I don't want your money." "What do you suggest then?" Ross said, "Maybe we can keep it a secret when we get together." "You mean so people won't know there's no money between us?" "Right," said Ross. Now that was a change of pace, becoming clandestine lovers with a hustler to save his reputation. I said, "We can try it, but all the walls in this town seem to have ears." "Some of them have eyes too," said Ross. "And then it's probably easier if we do it this way. We get together, I pay you, you flash the money around, and then you give it back later. Then we do it all over again." Ross said, "I love you, darling." He gave me a big hug and a noisy kiss on the neck. "I'll go back upstairs and get settled. Then you come in, and we'll do the skit with the money." He went back up. I waited a few minutes, then made my entrance again. This time it was lights, camera, action. "Hello, stranger," said Ross. "Hi there," I said, and took a seat at the bar. "I think we have some unfinished business." I pulled out my wallet and removed the 450s I'd earmarked for Ross's service the previous night. I said loudly, "You forgot to take something last night." "Oh, yeah," said Ross matter-of-factly. "I must have had too much to drink." I pressed the cash onto him, making sure the other patrons at the bar saw and heard. Ross took it and jammed it into his shirt pocket for all to see. "Thanks for being so honest," he said. "Sure," I said. "I might even call you again. I almost believed our little scam myself." "You want a drink?" he said. I nodded. "Teeny up with a twist. Clean and double." Ross set about preparing my drink, and then from the stairwell came the clatter of high heels running up the stairs, and finally the towering figure of Miss Cozy Dinette appeared at the top.
"Hey, Boston!" she yelled. "I saw you down at the marina. Quite a show, huh? Smoke and fire and everything else." "What were you doing there?" Cozy explained. "I got my hair done. Can't you tell? In truth, not a strand was different." "Looks great," I said. "Liar," said Cozy as she let out a laugh. And then she said to Ross, "I need to cool off, Rosina. I've been running around all morning. How about an apple spritzer, heavy on the lime?" "Which rum?" said Ross. "Light or dark?" "None," said Cozy. "And no arguments." Ross stalled, as though making a non-alcoholic drink for Cozy Dinette defied the laws of physics. Finally, he jogged himself into action and filled a giant tumbler with ice, poured in apple juice halfway up, and then topped it off with the seltzer. 4 lime wedges finished the drink. Cozy grabbed hold of the tumbler and drank eagerly. "Really cuts the phlegm," she said. "Learned about it from a sky slut. It's the only thing that works in this heat." While Ross tended to his other customers, I asked Cozy if she knew who was managing the crow's nest. "Who?" said Cozy, as though the pronoun had no meaning. "Yeah, who?" I said, and then explained that somebody was running the place since Augusta had been killed, and I wondered who it was, for that matter, who was managing any of the late Peter Willits' property. Cozy said, "I wouldn't know. How about your property advisor? Would she know?" "Maybe," said Cozy. "Boston, I wonder if you're having enough fun here. You're always worrying about things that don't concern you." "What do you suggest I do?" "That's easy," said Cozy. "Forget about the murders and stop chasing after Ross. They're both dead-end pursuits." "I'm not chasing Ross." "Is that so?" said Cozy. "Well, then, don't encourage him." "Why not?" "You don't need him as a friend." "I don't want him as a friend. Cozy, I want to keep him on the payroll." "I think you should go see some strippers tonight." I told her sure, I was willing to see more local culture. She told me where the best ones were. Then Cozy gulped down the rest of her spritzer and banged the tumbler on the bar. "See you around, Boston." Then she left the bar. Moments later, Ross came over. He leaned close to me and murmured, "I got a little secret for you, darling. I know who's managing all that property Augusta stole from Peter's estate." "You do?" I said. "And it's not a person. It's a company." "Have they got a name?" "It's an odd one. Are you ready?" I nodded eagerly. Ross said, "It's called Mindful Lotus." "How do you know this?" "Darling, I hear all kinds of things on this side of the bar. People think they're talking secrets, but everything comes over the bar loud and clear." "Did you hear what I just said to Cozy about you and me?" "Sure did, darling. But I know you didn't mean it." Then Ross pulled away and spoke in a normal voice for the benefit of the others in the toolbox. "So, if you like strippers, you might do better with one of them." The remark lent more credibility to my persona of the lonely vacationer shopping for cash and carry sex. On the walk back to the Jared Bellamy house, I stopped in at the police station to see Jolie Takir. By that time, attorney Nancy L. Drew should have met with her, and I was curious how that first session between client and advocate had turned out. I found Jerry painting peacefully in her cell. She looked up. "It's actually good working here," she said. "There is no tourist to interrupt me." "Then excuse this interruption," I said. "I needed a break anyway," said Jerry. I asked her if the lawyer had come by and how their meeting had progressed. Jerry told me attorney Drew seemed more interested in finding out how much she knew about Adolf Doberman's business dealings than with her whereabouts at the time of his murder. I said, "Does she believe you're innocent? Does she want to represent you?" "Yes to both questions," said Jerry. "That's good." "I'm not so sure. Look how she bungled Peter's will." I assured her it would be all right. After all, Nancy Drew was supposed to be the best lawyer around. But really, what did I know? I left Jerry and headed back upstairs. The lieutenant wasn't in, so I used a public phone to call Nancy Drew's office. Even though I was paying the woman to represent Jerry, I still had to contend with her secretary, a dragon at the gate. I persisted, claiming that I had urgent matters to tell attorney Drew in person, that I was old-fashioned, and when it came to the law, that I didn't trust the telephone and liked to confer face-to-face. The secretary remarked, "A lot of good that'll do." But finally she yielded and gave me an appointment with the great lawyer, provided I could be at the office within 15 minutes, no later. So it was rush, 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 just like for the initial consultation. I ran back to the guest house, got the Alpha, and zoomed out to Roosevelt Boulevard. I had raced all the way to Nancy L. Drew's office, but when I got there, the secretary told me I'd have to wait. How long? As long as it took Attorney Drew to finish the matter and at hand. I asked the secretary to announce me at least, but she snarled and said Attorney Drew was not to be disturbed. But I just called you, I said, and you told me. I know what I said, but the situation has changed, and you've been preempted. Big words from a small mouth. She told me I'd be better off coming back some other time. I said I'd wait. She told me to suit myself. The airborne fungus, or whatever it was in that air conditioner, was stinging my nostrils again, so I told the secretary I'd wait outside. She said quickly, if you're going to wait, you ought to wait in here. I mean, it's so hot out there, and you don't want to miss Attorney Drew. I'm not going far. The secretary remained uneasy. I sensed there might be something outside I wasn't supposed to see, which only drove me out the door faster. I wandered around to the back of the building, off the asphalt parking lot, and onto a lush green lawn that faced out on the water. The perpetual rains had kept the green things healthy back there. Despite the blazing sun, also back there, parked close behind the building, right next to the rear emergency exit, was my old friend, the pink taxicab, idling quietly. I went toward it to peer inside the darkly tinted windows, but before I got close, it pulled slowly away from me and drove around the far side of the building. I followed it, and on the way, past the back windows to Attorney Drew's office. The windows were all shielded by slatted blinds, which were shut tight. Nancy Drew was obviously engaged in a clandestine conference. I leaned close to the windows, hoping to hear or see something from within, but the glass was double-paned and perfectly soundproof. What did come through loud and clear was the secretary's voice as she emerged from around the near side of the building. Attorney Drew can see you now, she said. I wanted to linger out there and find out who was driving that taxi, but I realized the secretary's mission of the moment was to prevent exactly that from happening, so I went back with her through the front entrance of the building. The big glass panel door had just about lashed itself behind us when I caught a glimpse of the pink taxi zooming out the front parking lot. In her office, Attorney Drew seemed slightly ruffled. Mr. Kraychik, she said too cordially, Jerry Takir's White Knight, what brings you here today? I wanted to discuss Jerry's case. I'm afraid that is now a matter of confidentiality between my client and myself. But I know something that might bear directly on it. Mr. Kraychik, I have found that when people offer information voluntarily, they usually have agendas. You mean motives? I said. What do you want? She said sharply. I want to help Jerry Takir. And then I owe it to my client to hear you out for a few minutes. Especially since I'm the one paying for your services. Nancy L. Drew smiled complacently and said, That has never influenced me. Mr. Kraychik, but go on now. And quickly, please. I told her that I thought everything was interconnected. Augusta Willits' death, Jerry Takir's stolen painting, Adolf Doberman's death, and the subsequently recovered painting. Nancy Drew said, And just how do you connect the dots, Mr. Kraychik? I can't. There's a missing link. And what do you think it is? I think it's whoever is managing all of Peter Willits' property. The lawyer said nothing. Do you know about a group called Mindful Lotus? I said. Nancy L. Drew smiled like a Buddha and said, It sounds like one of those religious sects. I heard it's directly connected to the Willits estate. The attorney replied, Jerry Takir's murder case bears no relation whatsoever to the Willits case. And I strongly advise you to discontinue thinking along those lines. Who's managing all that property now? That, said the attorney, is entirely at the discretion of the owners. Exactly my point, I said. Who are the owners? Mr. Kraychik, I have nothing more to say on that matter. All right then, I said. What about the pink taxicab that's been following me around the island for the past few days? Nancy Drew chortled. A pink taxicab? The one that was parked behind the building just now? Mr. Kraychik, do you realize how many pink taxicabs are on Key West? But I recognized this one. Her eyes narrowed like a predator registering its prey. Your blundering about this may damage your friend's case. Why can't you tell me what it's all about? I'm paying you, after all. I don't care who's paying me, said Attorney Drew, and I don't answer questions simply because people ask them. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm not on vacation like you, and I have work to do. Then tell me what you're doing to prove Jerry's innocence. That is a very simple matter, said the attorney. There will be no case against her. The only evidence is a painting of hers found in her own gallery, and some mud on her bicycle. Neither finding is even remotely incriminating. The charges will be dropped before an indictment is made. And now my advice to you, Mr. Kraychik, is that you go and work on your tan. You look like you need it. I'm allergic to the sun. Nancy Drew said, Is that how you lost your hair? No, I said. I shaved my head. I'm in mourning. I came to Key West to find myself. Nancy Drew said quietly, Mostly people come here to lose themselves. How long before Jerry Takir is released? The great attorney stood up, a dramatic gesture I suspected she reserved for her most intense moments of power. The law works in its own time. Intrusions by outsiders often hinder that progress. So I urge you to get on with your vacation and leave the important matters to the professionals. Now, if you don't mind, she gestured toward the door. I got up and went toward it. As I opened it to leave, Nancy Drew made her parting remark. Mr. Kraychik, she said, if you find yourself too restless, perhaps some companionship will help pass the time. For that valuable advice, I was paying attorney Nancy L. Drew $325 an hour, plus expenses. Ross's brand of no-frills service was a far better buy. I drove the Alpha out to the vast public beach on the east side of town. I hoped the white sand and the blue water along the shore would help restore a sense of well-being after the legal consultation. I parked the car facing toward the water, then put on my straw hat and turned on the stereo. It was a tape of Smetana's The Maldu, a piece Rafik had always dismissed as too sentimental. Now I could play it to my heart's content and reconnect to my Czech forebears. Through the music they'd written, I kept it quiet, though, so it wouldn't intrude on the gentle sounds of low tide on Key West. With the heat of the afternoon sun penetrating my light cotton shirt and warming the leather seat of the Alpha, and with the soothing music and the sultry air, I was lulled into a pleasant, dreamy state, and I lost track of time. Sometime later, I heard footsteps approaching on the gravel in the parking area. I opened my eyes lazily to see Etzel Cham standing there. This is the only natural beach on Key West. I said, because Key West is a coral reef and not a landmass. Very good, he said. I've been reading my tourist guide. I offered him a seat in the Alpha, and he took it. Nice leather, he said. I didn't hear your car drive up, I said. I don't drive, he said. I walk a lot. Isn't that what writers are supposed to do? You know better than I would, I said. You'll forgive me, he said, but I've got such good news. I can't help telling everybody I meet. Can I tell you too? It's really wonderful. Hollywood just bought my pilot episode, and they're contracting me for 10 more. This deal puts me over the top financially. My life is secure forever. Sounds nice, I said. Fame and fortune? Etzel grinned. Fame is hardly new, he said immodestly. I've learned how to manage and enjoy that, but now I'll have the fortune too, and I intend to invest it wisely. Don't forget to spend some. Oh, don't worry, he said heartily, like one rich guy to another. Well, enough about me. What have you been up to? Nothing so glamorous as Hollywood, I said. Then I told him San Fuentes had arrested Jerry Takir, and that I'd hired Nancy Drew to represent her. Etzel said, I heard about the arrest. I think it was a big mistake. But you were wise to engage Nancy. She can certainly handle the case. Fact is, there isn't much of a case at all. Only murder. But there's no real evidence against Jerry Takir, is there? It'll all blow over soon, and she'll be painted again. That's what Nancy Drew implied. There, see, he said. If she and I agree, it must be so. You're both usually socializing together, too. Great minds in a small town must unite, said Edsel with a comfortable chuckle. Just the way you and I are doing now? Lucky me. He gazed out over the calm water. Best-selling author appreciates nature. I said, speaking of Nancy Drew, what is her connection to a company called Mindful Lotus? Edsel lowered his sunglasses and exposed his big eyes. You sound like primetime television again, Stan. Naughty me, I said. But what about Mindful Lotus? Did Ross tell you this? I didn't answer. Why betray my sources when they were so adept at betraying each other? Edsel went on. If you spend any time with Ross, you'll hear a lot of interesting things that have little relation to the truth. How well do you know Ross? Well enough, said Edsel. And don't get on that track again. Men can be friends without sex, you know. So you and Ross are friends, then? You're twisting things. I'm trying to untwist them. All I asked was if you knew anything about Mindful Lotus. And the untwisted answer is, he said, no. That was Nancy Drew's answer, too. Great mind, said Edsel, with another chuckle. But don't forget, Nancy is part Teflon. Someone must know about Mindful Lotus. Perhaps they're not a local company. By the name, they sound foreign. Or trendy, I said. Suddenly, Edsel had to be on his way, and he moved to open the passenger door of the Alpha. I offered him a lift wherever he was going. He complained it was probably not on my way. I told him I had no plans. Besides, I said, how big is Key West? Edsel then mimicked some generic character in a British TV sitcom. Very well, sir, he said. Take me post-haste to the toolbox, where I shall imbibe a while. On the way to the bar, I caught sight of the pink taxicab in my rearview mirror. I mentioned it, but Edsel dismissed my concern. Those things are everywhere. But this one has dark windows, and for a while it followed me everywhere. Then what happened? Now, I said. Now it just goes by. Maybe someone had a crush on you, he said. That's what Lieutenant Sanfuentes said. Did he? Said Edsel. I would never have credited him with such imagination. I said, straight people seem pretty tolerant here. Live and let live, he said, then added with a self-amused chuckle. Fuck and let fuck. He took out a small black notebook and scribbled something down, lest I forget my own wittiness. When I dropped him off, he invited me up to the bar for a cocktail, but I told him that I wanted to catch a short nap. Are you seeing Ross tonight? He said suggestively. I have other plans. That's probably wise, he said, then closed the door and walked off.
A Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold. To offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides. And in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.